The Galactic Council chamber resembled a massive geode, its crystalline walls refracting the light of 3 suns into countless rainbow patterns. Ambassador Sarah Chen tried to ignore the whispers that followed her as she made her way to Earth's designated seat. After 5 years representing humanity in the Council, she'd grown accustomed to being the only one of her kind among the assembled species. But today felt different. "Order," announced High Counselor Vexterra, their bioluminescent form pulsing with formal blue patterns. "We gather to address a matter of grave importance to the stability of the Galactic Council." Sarah straightened in her seat. Earth's position in the Council had grown increasingly precarious over the past year. Despite humanity's rapid technological advancement, many elder races viewed them as too emotional, too unpredictable to have a real voice in galactic affairs. "The Centaurian Empire faces an unprecedented crisis," Vexterra continued. "Prince Zarkax approaches with a proposal that concerns Earth directly." A tall crystalline being glided forward, its faceted body catching the light. Sarah had met the Centaurian prince before. Their species communicated through light patterns within their crystalline forms, making them notorious for their pure logic and emotional detachment. "Esteemed Council," Zarkax's translator hummed, "my daughter, Karis, has manifested an unprecedented mutation. She experiences and projects emotions at a level that threatens our society's stability. Our scientists cannot correct this flaw." Sarah's diplomatic training couldn't entirely hide her frown. The Centaurians viewed emotion as a primitive evolutionary holdover, something to be engineered away. A crystalline being who could feel and project emotions would be their worst nightmare. "We propose a solution that benefits both the Empire and Earth," Zarkax continued. "We offer Ambassador Chen guardianship of Karis, along with exclusive mining rights to 3 deuterium-rich systems within our territory." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of reactions. Some species laughed outright, while others buzzed with disapproval. Sarah sat perfectly still, her mind racing. The mining rights alone would secure Earth's energy needs for centuries, but there had to be a catch. "You want to give your daughter to a human." The Valyri representative's tentacles writhed with amusement. How fitting. Letting the emotionals raise the emotional. Karis requires extensive conditioning to control her abilities, Zarkax stated. "Our attempts have failed. Perhaps humans, with their natural predisposition toward emotional expression, can succeed where we cannot." Sarah stood slowly, her voice clear in the now quiet chamber. "I would like to meet Karis before making any decision." "The child is present," Vexterra announced. "Come forward, young one." A smaller crystalline form emerged from behind her father. Unlike the pure, clear structure of adult Centaurians, Karis's form swirled with colors that shifted like the aurora borealis. As she approached, Sarah felt an unexpected wave of loneliness and fear wash over her. "The projection is involuntary," Zarkax explained, his own form flickering with what might have been embarrassment. "We cannot stop it." Sarah took a careful step toward Karis, noticing how other council members drew back. The young Centaurian's colors swirled faster, anxiety clear in the pattern. Slowly, Sarah knelt to be at eye level with the child. "Hello, Karis. I'm Sarah." She smiled, letting her genuine curiosity and compassion show. "Would you like to tell me how you feel about all this?" The chamber fell silent. No one asked Centaurian children their opinions, especially about formal matters. Karis's form brightened, and Sarah felt a tentative touch of hope brush her mind. I feel everything," Karis's translator whispered. "Father says it makes me broken, but I see so much beauty in the feelings. The way species connect, the way they dream and hope and love. I don't want to stop feeling it." Sarah nodded, understanding flowing between them. "You're not broken, Karis. You're different, and sometimes different is exactly what we need to be." Standing, Sarah faced the council. "I accept guardianship of Karis with one condition." She met Zarkax's gaze steadily. "No conditioning, no attempts to suppress her abilities. She comes to Earth as she is, and we help her learn to control and use her gift in her own way. Gift. Zarkax's form flickered with confusion. It is a mutation, a flaw. Every major advancement in history started as a mutation. Sarah interrupted. You see a flaw. I see potential. Those are our terms. The chamber buzzed with discussion. Sarah felt another wave of emotion from Karis. Hope, stronger this time, tinged with something that felt like sunrise. Vexterra's form pulsed thoughtfully. The council recognizes this agreement. Ambassador Chen accepts guardianship of Karis of the Centaurian Empire, with full rights of protection under Earth's laws. May your emotional wisdom prove useful in this unprecedented situation. As Sarah led Karis from the chamber, ignoring the mixture of laughter and muttering that followed them, she felt the young Centaurian's colors shift to match the warm gold of Earth's sun. Sometimes, Sarah thought, the biggest diplomatic victories came disguised as jokes. Let them laugh. She had a feeling they wouldn't be laughing for long. The morning sun painted New Geneva's skyline in shades of gold, but it was the swirling colors within Karis's crystalline form that truly caught the eye. 3 months had passed since Sarah brought her ward to Earth's diplomatic compound, and each day brought new surprises. The energy readings are off the charts, Dr. Maya Patil murmured, adjusting her sensors. Karis, can you describe what you're feeling right now? The young Centaurian's form rippled with gentle blues and greens. The trees in the garden, they're happy. The sunlight feeds them, makes them sing. And the birds, she paused, colors shifting to bright yellow. Their joy when they fly is like starlight in my mind. Sarah watched from the observation room, remembering how different things had been when they first arrived. Karis had been withdrawn, her colors muted, expecting the same clinical treatment she'd received in the Empire. Instead, they'd given her a garden. Ambassador Chen. Sarah's AI assistant chimed softly. The Arcturus delegation has arrived early for the trade negotiations. They seem agitated. Sarah sighed. The Arcturians were always agitated. Their species evolved from pack predators, making them naturally aggressive and territorial. Tell them I'll be right there. Wait. Karis's form brightened. May I come with you? Dr. Patel and Sarah exchanged glances. They'd been careful to limit Karis's exposure to diplomatic situations, knowing how overwhelming others' emotions could be. But the young Centaurian had grown stronger, more controlled. It's your choice, Sarah said carefully. But Arcturians feel emotions very intensely. Karis's colors shifted to determined purple. That's why I want to help. I can see the patterns now in how emotions flow. Sometimes they just need redirecting, like light through a prism. The Arcturian delegation was already pacing the conference room when they arrived, their fur bristling with barely contained aggression. Their lead negotiator, Ambassador Krell, bared his fangs in what might have been a smile or a threat. Finally, he growled, "We demand immediate resolution to the border dispute. Our colony ships will not wait while humans waste time with pleasantries." Sarah felt Karis move slightly behind her, the young Centaurian's form beginning to pulse with calm, steady light. Surprisingly, Krell's bristling fur began to smooth. Perhaps, Karis's translator hummed softly, you could show us what you envision for the colony, your people's dreams for their new home. The Arcturians paused, caught off guard. Slowly, Krell's aggressive stance softened. We seek forests, like our ancestral homes. Our cubs deserve to run under open skies. Sarah watched in amazement as Karis guided the conversation, her form reflecting and refracting emotions like light. When the Arcturians spoke of their hopes, she amplified their joy. When they expressed fears, she tempered them with understanding. Within an hour, they were drawing up plans for a joint human-Arcturian environmental preservation project. How did you do that? Sarah asked later as they walked through the garden. I've never seen Arcturians so reasonable. Karis's colors danced with pleasure. Everyone's emotions have patterns, like light through crystal. Arcturians feel deeply, but their aggression usually comes from fear. Fear of losing territory, of showing weakness. Once they felt safe enough to share their true hopes. She paused, her form shimmering. I just helped them see their own light more clearly. You're not just sensing emotions anymore, Sarah realized. You're learning to guide them, to help people understand themselves and each other. On Centauri, they tried to make me stop feeling. Here, Karis's colors shifted to a deep, thoughtful blue. Here I'm learning that feelings aren't flaws to fix. They're more like the spectrum of a star. Each wavelength has its purpose, its beauty. Even the ones that seem dangerous. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent alert. Sarah's AI projected a news hologram. Prince Zarkax was addressing the Galactic Council. Earth's influence has corrupted my daughter. His translated voice rang out. Instead of suppressing her dangerous mutation, they encourage it. We have reports of her interfering with diplomatic negotiations, manipulating emotions, helping people understand each other. Sarah corrected firmly, though he couldn't hear her. She turned to Karis, whose colors had dimmed with worry. Are you all right? They're afraid, Karis whispered. Not just father, but many in the council. They fear what I represent, the idea that emotion and logic might not be enemies after all. Sarah nodded grimly. They fear change, and people who fear change often try to stop it, no matter the cost. What will we do? We'll show them, Sarah said, watching Karis's colors begin to brighten again. Not just that your abilities aren't dangerous, but that they're exactly what this galaxy needs. They call Earth too emotional, too impulsive. Fine. Let's show them what emotion and empathy can really do. As if in response, Karis's form blazed with determination, her colors rippling out to paint the garden in rainbow light. In that moment, Sarah understood. They weren't just protecting one unique child. They were defending humanity's way of seeing the universe, through hearts as well as minds, through feelings as well as facts. The real challenge was just beginning. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was called without warning. Sarah and Karis arrived to find the chamber in chaos, multiple species talking over each other in a cacophony of voices, clicks, and telepathic broadcasts. Silence. High Counselor Vexterra's bioluminescence flashed like lightning. We face an unprecedented crisis. The Shade Collective has released a bioweapon on the Meridian Trading Station. Sarah felt her blood run cold. The Shade Collective was a terrorist group that believed emotional species were corrupting galactic civilization. They'd been quiet for years, but now, the weapon appears engineered to target emotional centers. A Valyri medical officer reported, tentacles writhing in distress. Victims experience overwhelming fear and aggression. 3 riots have already broken out. If it spreads to the residential sectors, the station must be quarantined. Prince Zarkax interrupted, his crystalline form pulsing with harsh light. Seal it off. The needs of the many outweigh. There are 10,000 civilians on that station. Sarah stood, unable to contain her horror, including children from 15 different species, which is precisely why we cannot risk the contagion spreading, another council member argued. Better to lose 10,000 than 10 million. Karis, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. Her colors swirled with purpose. I can help. The chamber fell silent. Sarah felt a mix of concern and pride as her ward faced the council. Gone was the uncertain child of 6 months ago. In her place stood someone who understood both her power and her responsibility. You, Prince Zarkax's translator, crackled with disbelief. This is not a matter for untested abilities and emotional interference. I can sense and influence emotions across distances, Karis explained, her form steady. If you get me close enough to the station, I can help calm the infected, give your medical teams time to work. Absolutely not, her father began, but Sarah cut him off. The weapon targets emotional centers, she pointed out. Who better to counter it than someone who can directly influence those same centers? Unless you have a better solution ready. The council erupted in debate. Sarah watched Harris carefully, noting how her colors remained calm despite the chaos around them. Finally, Vexterra raised their hands for silence. "We will put it to a vote. But know this, if we agree, and you fail, the consequences will fall on both of you, and on Earth." The journey to Meridian Station was tense. Through the ship's viewport, the massive trading hub looked peaceful, but emergency broadcasts told a different story. The infection had spread to 6 levels, with medical teams barricaded in the upper sectors. "Are you sure about this?" Sarah asked softly as they docked. "No one will think less of you if." "I'm sure." Karis's colors shifted to deep, determined purple. "All my life, I was told my abilities were a flaw. But maybe they were meant for exactly this moment." They set up in a secure medical bay, surrounded by screens showing chaos in the lower levels. Karis settled into a specially designed cradle, her form beginning to pulse with gentle light. "I see them," she whispered. "So much fear, so much anger. It's like a storm in their minds. Can you help them?" Yes, but not by fighting the emotions. They're too strong for that." Her colors shifted thoughtfully. "I need to redirect them, like light through a crystal. Show them a different path." The emergency session of the Galactic Council was called without warning. Sarah and Karis arrived to find the chamber in chaos, multiple species talking over each other in a cacophony of voices, clicks, and telepathic broadcasts. Silence. High Counselor Vexterra's bioluminescence flashed like lightning. "We face an unprecedented crisis. The Shade Collective has released a bioweapon on the Meridian Trading Station." Sarah felt her blood run cold. The Shade Collective was a terrorist group that believed emotional species were corrupting galactic civilization. They'd been quiet for years, but now, the weapon appears engineered to target emotional centers. A Voliri medical officer reported, tentacles writhing in distress. Victims experience overwhelming fear and aggression. 3 riots have already broken out. If it spreads to the residential sectors, the station must be quarantined. Prince Zarkax interrupted, his crystalline form pulsing with harsh light. "Seal it off. The needs of the many outweigh. There are 10,000 civilians on that station." Sarah stood, unable to contain her horror, including children from 15 different species. "Which is precisely why we cannot risk the contagion spreading," another council member argued. "Better to lose 10,000 than 10 million. Karis, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. Her colors swirled with purpose. "I can help." The chamber fell silent. Sarah felt a mix of concern and pride as her ward faced the council. Gone was the uncertain child of 6 months ago. In her place stood someone who understood both her power and her responsibility. "You?" Prince Zarkax's translator crackled with disbelief. "This is not a matter for untested abilities and emotional interference. I can sense and influence emotions across distances," Karis explained, her form steady. "If you get me close enough to the station, I can help calm the infected. Give your medical teams time to work." "Absolutely not," her father began, but Sarah cut him off. "The weapon targets emotional centers," she pointed out. "Who better to counter it than someone who can directly influence those same centers? Unless you have a better solution ready." The council erupted in debate. Sarah watched Harris carefully, noting how her colors remained calm despite the chaos around them. Finally, Vexterra raised their hands for silence. "We will put it to a vote. But know this, if we agree, and you fail, the consequences will fall on both of you, and on Earth." The journey to Meridian Station was tense. Through the ship's viewport, the massive trading hub looked peaceful, but emergency broadcasts told a different story. The infection had spread to 6 levels, with medical teams barricaded in the upper sectors. "Are you sure about this?" Sarah asked softly as they docked. "No one will think less of you if." "I'm sure." Karis's colors shifted to deep, determined purple. "All my life, I was told my abilities were a flaw. But maybe they were meant for exactly this moment." They set up in a secure medical bay, surrounded by screens showing chaos in the lower levels. Karis settled into a specially designed cradle, her form beginning to pulse with gentle light. "I see them," she whispered. "So much fear, so much anger. It's like a storm in their minds. Can you help them?" Yes, but not by fighting the emotions. They're too strong for that." Her colors shifted thoughtfully. "I need to redirect them, like light through a crystal. Show them a different path." Sarah watched in awe as Karis began to glow brighter. On the screens, the riots began to slow. Where there had been fear and rage, confusion took hold. Then, gradually, clarity. "What are you showing them?" Sarah asked, noting how the medical teams were finally able to approach the infected. "Their own light," Karis explained, her form shimmering with effort. "Everyone has darkness and light inside them. The weapon forces them to see only darkness. I'm helping them remember the light. Memories of love, of hope, of connection. The darkness is still there, but it's not all they can see anymore." Hour after hour, Karis worked. The medical teams reported success after success as patients calmed enough to receive treatment. Even the council members observing remotely fell silent, watching as the infection's tide turned. Finally, after 18 grueling hours, the medical chief announced the crisis contained. The weapon's effects were being neutralized, and not a single life had been lost to the quarantine they'd almost imposed. Karis's form dimmed with exhaustion, but her colors remained steady. "Father always said emotion made us weak," she murmured as Sarah helped her from the cradle. But today, understanding emotion saved lives. Back in the council chamber, even Prince Zarkax seemed at a loss for words. High Counselor Vextera spoke for all of them. "We have witnessed something unprecedented," they announced. "A power we once feared, used not for destruction, but for healing. Perhaps there is wisdom in the human approach after all." Sarah smiled, supporting her tired but proud ward. "Emotion isn't the opposite of wisdom," she said. "It's part of it. Karis doesn't just feel emotions, she understands them. And understanding, after all, is what civilization is built on." As they left the chamber, Sarah noticed something different. The whispers that followed them weren't mocking anymore. They were wondering. And in that wonder, she heard the first notes of change. The victory at Meridian Station should have changed everything. Instead, it became the spark that ignited a galaxy-wide debate. Holoprojectors across hundreds of worlds showed Prince Zarkax standing before the Centaurian High Court, his crystalline form pulsing with calculated precision. "We cannot ignore the potential danger," his transmitted words echoed through Sarah's office. Yes, Karis's abilities proved useful in one crisis. But consider the implications. A being who can influence the emotions of entire populations. The potential for abuse is catastrophic. Sarah muted the transmission, turning to where Karis sat in her garden sanctuary. The young Centaurian's colors swirled with troubled blues and greens. "He's gathering support," Karis said softly. "Not just from our people, but from others who fear emotional influence. They're calling for my return to the Empire for protective custody." Before Sarah could respond, her AI assistant materialized. "Ambassador, we're receiving multiple diplomatic requests for comment. And there's more. We've detected unauthorized scans of the compound's defenses. They're not just going to debate this," Sarah realized. "They're preparing to take you by force if they have to." Karis's form flickered with determination. "I won't go back. I won't let them lock away who I am." "No one's taking you anywhere," Sarah assured her, already sending encrypted messages to Earth's allies. "But we need to be smart about this. Your father is playing to people's fears. We need to show them something stronger than fear." Support came from unexpected quarters. The Arcturians, impressed by Karis's help with their negotiations, pledged their fleet to Earth's defense. The survivors from Meridian Station began sharing their stories, speaking of healing rather than manipulation. But the opposition was growing too. Conservative factions argued that emotional influence was a form of mental violation. Some even suggested that humans had engineered Karis's mutation as part of a plot to destabilize the Empire. Ambassador Chen, Karis called one evening, her colors pulsing with urgency. Something's happening in the city. Many minds, all focused, all moving with purpose. Sarah checked the security feeds. Groups were gathering outside the compound's perimeter. A mix of species, all carrying signs demanding Karis's removal from Earth. Protesters, Sarah muttered, though I doubt they organized this themselves. They're afraid, Karis observed, her form shifting to analytical purple. But not all of them. Some minds feel different. Focused, waiting. Sarah's instincts flared. Computer, run deep scan of the crowd. Look for energy signatures, particularly weapons. Multiple anomalies detected, the AI reported. Pattern matches known, Shade Collective technology. It's a setup, Sarah realized. They're using the protesters as cover for an attack. If anything happens, they can blame it on civil unrest. Karis moved toward the window, her colors hardening into resolve. Let me talk to them. Absolutely not. It's too dangerous. They fear me because they don't understand. Let me show them who I really am. Karis's form pulsed with quiet confidence. Trust me, Sarah, like you did at Meridian. After a moment's hesitation, Sarah nodded. She activated the compound's external speakers and defensive shields, then escorted Karis to the main gate. As they emerged, the crowd's shouts died away. Karis stepped forward, her form beginning to glow with gentle, multicolored light. I feel your fear, her translator carried across the suddenly quiet square. Fear of being controlled, of losing yourselves. I understand. I was afraid too, when I first realized what I could do. Her colors shifted to mirror the crowd's emotional state, acknowledging their anxiety while slowly transforming it into something calmer. But emotion isn't a weapon to be feared. It's a bridge to understanding. Let me show you. A shot rang out. Sarah moved to pull Karis back, but the young Centaurian stood firm. The energy blast that should have shattered her crystalline form instead refracted through her, splitting into a rainbow that illuminated the square. In that light, Sarah saw several figures trying to slip away. Shade Collective assassins, their cover blown. But Karis wasn't finished. You came to attack in fear, she called out, her form blazing brighter. Stay, and let me show you why you don't need to be afraid. The light pouring from her form carried emotions, not overwhelming force, but understanding. Compassion. Hope. The crowd stood transfixed as their fear melted away, replaced by something more profound. Recognition. They saw Karis not as a threat, but as a child of their galaxy. Different, yes, but part of the same cosmic dance of evolution and change that had shaped all their species. The attempted assassination made headlines across the galaxy, but not in the way the Shade Collective had planned. Instead of fear, the story spoke of courage, of a being who responded to hatred with understanding, to violence with peace. Your father won't give up, Sarah warned later as they watched the sun set over the city. This was just the first move in a longer game. I know, Karis agreed, her colors steady and sure. But now others know the truth too. They felt it themselves. She turned to Sarah, her form shimmering with purpose. We're not just fighting for my freedom anymore. We're fighting for the right of every species to evolve in their own way, to be different without being feared. Sarah nodded, understanding. The storm wasn't over, it was just beginning. But as she watched Karis's colors paint the evening sky, she knew they'd face it together, with both heart and mind aligned. Change was coming to the galaxy, ready or not. The Galactic Council chamber felt different this time. Where once there had been whispers and mockery, now a heavy silence hung in the air. Every seat was filled, the first full session in decades. They had all come to witness what promised to be a defining moment in galactic history. High Counselor Vexterra's form pulsed with formal patterns. We convened this historic session to address the petition regarding Karis of the Centaurian Empire. Prince Zarkax, you may present your case. The crystalline prince glided forward, his form precision-cut and cold. The evidence is clear. My daughter's mutation represents an unprecedented threat to galactic stability. Her influence over emotions makes her too dangerous for any single world to shelter. He turned to face Sarah. Earth has overstepped. The child must be returned to her people. Sarah stood, feeling Karis's steady presence beside her. I agree that Karis's abilities are unprecedented. She began, earning surprise murmurs. But unprecedented doesn't mean threatening. Every species in this chamber evolved through unprecedented mutations. Every technological leap was once considered dangerous. This is different, Zarkax countered. She can alter the fundamental nature of sentient beings. Can I? Karis's voice rang out clear and strong, surprising those who expected a meek child. Her form blazed with confident colors as she addressed the council directly. I don't alter anyone's nature. I help them see what's already there. She moved to the center of the chamber, her colors beginning to shift and flow. Each of you carries a universe of emotions within you. Even species that pride themselves on logic feel deeply. You've just learned to hide it, to fear it. And that fear, Sarah added, is what truly threatens stability. When we fear parts of ourselves, we project that fear onto others. The Shade Collective didn't emerge from emotion. It emerged from the fear of emotion. Karis's form began to pulse with gentle light. With your permission, I would like to show you something. After a tense moment, Vexterra nodded. Karis's colors expanded, filling the chamber with shifting patterns of light. But this time, she didn't project emotion. Instead, she reflected it, creating a living map of the council's emotional state. Look, she said softly. See how your feelings connect, how they flow between species. Fear tangles with hope, anger with concern, pride with uncertainty. This is who we are. All of us, even those who deny it. These connections are what bind our civilization together. The chamber was silent as ancient beings saw themselves truly for the first time. Sarah watched awareness dawn in species after species. You see emotion as a weakness, she addressed her fellow council members. Earth sees it as a strength. Emotion drives us to explore, to connect, to grow. It's why humanity reached the stars so quickly, not because we're logical, but because we dream. And now you dream of controlling us, accused a council member, but their voice wavered with uncertainty. No. Karis's colors swirled with conviction. I dream of understanding. All of us, understanding each other, not just through words and logic, but through the heart of who we are. She turned to face her father. You gave me to Earth because you thought I was broken. But Earth showed me I was just growing in a different direction. Every species here evolved to fill a niche, to contribute something unique to our galaxy. Maybe this is my contribution. Not to control emotions, but to help us understand them. The chamber erupted in discussion, but it wasn't hostile anymore. Species that had never agreed on anything found themselves sharing thoughtful exchanges about emotions' role in their societies. Finally, Vexterra called for order. We will vote on the petition. But first, they turned to Karis. Young one, what do you choose? Not what Earth chooses for you, or what your father demands. What do you want? Karis's form shimmered with clear, strong colors. I choose to stay on Earth, not as a ward who needs protection, but as a bridge between worlds. Let me help build understanding between species. Let me show that emotion and logic, heart and mind, can work together to make us stronger. The vote was closer than Sarah would have liked, but in the end, Karis's choice was upheld. More importantly, the council established a new position, Emotional Intelligence Advisor, with Karis as its first appointee. They're still afraid, Karis observed later as they watched Earth's sun set from their garden. But now they're curious too. That's how change begins. Sarah smiled. That's how everything begins, with the courage to feel, to question, to grow. She looked at her ward, no, her friend, with pride, ready to help shape the future. Karis's form blazed with all the colors of a new dawn. I was born ready. We all were. Some of us just needed reminding. Across the galaxy, ancient species began to remember what they'd forgotten. That in the space between stars, in the quiet of their own hearts, emotion and logic danced together in an eternal spiral, each making the other stronger. And on Earth, a young Centaurian continued to grow, her light showing the way to a future where understanding bridged the gaps between worlds. It wasn't the end of their story. In many ways, it was just the beginning. But as Sarah watched Karis's colors paint the evening sky, she knew that sometimes the greatest adventures start with a single feeling, shared between hearts that dare to understand.